Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Red Hat webinar, BPM meets mobile and low-code development, 3 use cases for Agile Business Automation. My name is Steve O'Keefe, and I'm the Product Line Director for Red Hat Mobile. With me today is Phil Simpson, the Product Marketing Manager for Business Process Management and Rules. And we're going to go into this topic and get started right now. I want to begin with the notion of processes and digital transformation. And there's a lot going on today about digital transformation, a lot of conversation about this stage of digital transformation, this next generation of digital transformation and innovation that it's driving. And if digital transformation is the goal, process automation, process design, and process adaptation is really the how. And it is the way that firms create value, automate as many processes as they can, and rapidly adapt to changing business opportunities or as opportunities arise. And you'll see this in many analyst reports like the one we pulled this definition from the 451 report. And mobile has become the engagement channel for interacting with a business process. As mobile has matured into the primary engagement channel by which we all interact in our day, we have these devices in our pockets, on our desk, at our sides, practically 100% of the time. Our customers who are looking at their millennial digital native workforce are imagining ways that they can engage them on these platforms and take advantage of the unique capabilities that these devices provide. Analyst reports show that up to 80% of organizations are actively working on implementing some sort of mobile initiative, either internally or with third parties. And this is customers or employees interacting on the go in real time with the different business processes that they have to interact with. And this is them interacting with traditional applications that have been built with different interaction channels in mind. So it's really an opportunity to rethink, redo, and adapt those applications to this new engagement channel. Study by 451 Research, the 2016 U.S. Enterprise Mobility IT Decision Maker Survey identifies the top 3 drivers of investment in mobility solutions. This is an online survey of 2,000 enterprise mobility decision makers. The study explored how these enterprises make investment decisions about connectivity, mobile devices, and mobile applications. And it's hardly surprising that the top priorities for investment in mobility solutions were focused on 3 core activities: responding better to customers, improving worker productivity, and transforming business processes to improve efficiency. Business processes are at the core of all 3 of these, and organizations are viewing how mobile can help them further automate or transform business processes. And I think that these 3 priorities shows the depth to which mobile is being accepted in the workplace, and the depth with which it has penetrated the workplace, and companies and organizations are responding accordingly. Yet there's still work to be done. So if that was the glass half full view, there's also a glass half empty viewpoint. And that is that the demand for mobile interaction points exceeds the supply. Of the companies surveyed, less than half were mobile enabled in 2016. 1/3 have targeted next year to be mobile enabled. And 7% are looking at 2018 and beyond to achieve mobile in their environment. So while progress is being made, there is still work required to mobilize these applications. And it's about transforming the business processes, because these transformations can stress legacy systems and approaches. And getting mobile right can be challenging too, as the new capabilities of these devices, smartphones and tablets, capabilities like GPS, accelerometer, camera, have to be integrated thoughtfully into workflows and into applications. So it might take a reimagining of a process, or an adaptation of a process, or simply building a new process to begin with. And this excess demand or constrained supply has driven the emergence of the citizen developer. Right? It's a realization that meeting this demand means engaging beyond the traditional IT development lifecycle and finding new and innovative ways to put the tools in the hands of technology-forward citizen developers who can respond faster and adapt processes with the right tools. IT simply cannot be expected to keep up with the volume and pace of change that the business is demanding. And it's these tools, these flexible, citizen developer-oriented tools, that allows the IT department to provide capabilities to their organization to react to changing circumstances. We've got here a definition of citizen developer that was sourced by Gartner. Right? The end users who create business applications that they themselves or others use, and that are using development and runtime environments that are sanctioned or at least not actively forbidden by central IT. And I think this highlights a critical point of this, the effect of this over-demand and undersupply of these mobile-enabled, process-driven experiences. So what you see is the rise of do-it-yourself solutions or shadow IT, where platforms and technology are brought in by the business because they have the need to respond. And if IT can't support them, they've got to find a way to solve their challenges. So by bringing in these low-code types of tools and platforms to support the citizen developer, IT is really supporting the organization and their ability to respond to changing circumstances. And these low-code platforms and tools really support the developer in composing or assembling solutions rather than coding them. Right? They're drag and drop tools. They're visual. They offer modeling and services and APIs and the like that allow the citizen developer, who's not a coder, who doesn't do that, to assemble and build an experience. So these low-code mobile and BPM platforms are successful because they highlight the need for low-code development or almost even no-code. I said before, it's about assembly. It's not about creation. It's not about customization. It's about assembly of pieces that go together to create a whole. These are not custom, complex app development. They're not complex integrations. They're using readily available APIs for data access. They're about, they're not UX or UI intensive designs using the latest and greatest features of the mobile operating systems. They're really about building pragmatic extensions of applications or processes that exist today and enabling those on the devices, while at the same time taking advantage of those unique device capabilities I highlighted earlier. And it's all done wrapped up and governed and controlled and managed by the IT organization. So the organization has confidence that across these mobility projects that the right procedures, security protocols are being followed as the citizen developer builds these projects and puts them into production. What I'd like to do now, Phil and I would like to do now, is highlight a few use cases that Red Hat has worked with their customers on over the course of the last year or so on developing low-code applications using this combination of low-code tools, the BPM low-code tools, mobile low-code tools, and using those to extend these workloads out to mobile devices, build new applications, adapt old ones. So the first one I have here is a field workforce management use case. Enabling field workers is a significant area where, and a good example of where modern mobile devices can combine with business automation, right? Take the example of a field engineer like the one pictured here who needs to be at the right work location, the necessary equipment, the right resources, and the right customer or equipment information to work a service order, right? They need to follow regulations or other compliance requirements. They may need to work on complex machinery and need to look up schematics. They might need to or want to, complete their work order there with their device, capture a signature or image, and provide reporting and audit trail for the organization, right? Take advantage of things like GPS, the camera, the touch capabilities of these devices. So one example that we've actually built is a field worker on an oil platform. So what you see here are 4 screen captures off of a mobile app that is put in the hand of that field worker, an oil worker, whose responsibility is to maintain in good working order the equipment on an oil rig. An oil rig is a complex machine. There are many, many different devices on there. IoT has come into the picture where these devices have sensors on them that monitor themselves continuously and will update them. So what we build is an example of a mobile app, a back end, and a process engine, all interacting with a publicly available database on all of these rigs. So this is real rig information that you're seeing, right? All those platforms in the Gulf of Mexico there are real platforms. That rig data comes directly from that database and accessing that publicly hosted database. So in this scenario, the oil worker goes through their day, they're doing their tasks, they're listed on their mobile device, and let's say that IoT device that is attached to a pump notes a situation, like an excessive vibration that sends off an alert. It's exceeded the spec. That spec is designed in a rules engine. So when that rules engine receives that notification that that pump is out of spec, it sends an alert, right? The process workflow says alert the worker, and they send out a push notification taking advantage of the unique capabilities of these devices to alert the worker that a pump is either out of spec or is failing or some circumstance exists that they have to deal with. The worker can pull into that alert, pull up that pump and rig information right there on their device, and then they can go to the monitor. And this is, a interactive mobile web app or mobile application that allows the worker to interact with that device and maybe change the settings. Maybe the revolutions per minute or the aperture of the pump, or how much mud flow should be going through that particular pump at that particular time. And the worker can dial that up or down, change the settings. Those get pushed out to the device, and the settings are changed in real time, and then they can follow on with a work order to potentially fix or replace that pump. So here you see an example of a mobile app in the worker's hands interacting with a workflow engine that's running in a data center somewhere, that's monitoring real-time information coming from an IoT device and making decisions, either automated or can be dispatched manually, that send a job order out to that worker, which they can receive and act on right there from their device. It's a great example of modernizing a workflow that could take hours or days, can now be streamlined down into minutes and really addressed effectively and efficiently, kind of speeding up and making that organization that much more operationally efficient. So for the next 2 examples, I'd like to pass it over to Phil Simpson. Phil?
Great. Great. Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone. I have 2 more use cases that I'd like to share with you that I think illustrate the value of bringing these technologies together. The first one is from the shipping industry. We call it asset management, and as I'm sure everybody knows, today there are millions of packages shipped around the world every day. And one of the problems that shipping companies face is that some of these packages get damaged in transit. That's a very expensive process. It involves returning the package, insurance claims, and so on. And so it's very much in the interest of the logistics companies to try to minimize damage caused in transit to these packages. We can combine technologies like business rules, mobile, and various other technologies that we have in our middleware portfolio here at Red Hat to provide a solution to help the logistics companies with this problem. Essentially, it involves placing sensors on packages, sensors that measure things like humidity, temperature, vibration, and so on, that can provide a continuous stream of data about the health of the package, if you like, and alert the company when there might be a situation that needs intervention. The overall architecture that we've put together for this type of use case is illustrated here, and you can see that it brings together a number of products from the Red Hat middleware portfolio. Essentially, as I mentioned, we have packages that have sensors on them down on the bottom left of this diagram that are moving around from one location to another. And those sensors are providing effectively a continuous stream of data. that can be monitored and analyzed for potential problems. Because of the large amount of data that's being produced from all these packages, a general approach to handling this is really to split the processing into two separate layers. So there's what we call an intelligent gateway, which is the first level of processing that's kind of a device that's out at the edge of the network in the field that's receiving all of this raw data. And it's based on a number of standard technologies. At the very basic layer, it's running Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and then on top of that, we have Red Hat JBoss Fuse, which is our messaging and integration platform that's bringing all of this data together. And then we have some pre-processing handled by our business rules system, BRMS. And then the basic idea here is to sift through all this data and identify key events that are of relevance to the business. So rather than passing on all that raw data, we're looking for things that indicate there might be a problem. That information, that processed information, is then handed off to the second layer in the stack, which is typically based in the cloud or at the organization's data center. And again, this is providing a second level of processing that ultimately is going to deliver reports back to the organization. And those can be real-time displays of the status of all the packages and alerts when things potentially might be going wrong and might be needed to be looked at. And then, of course, on the back end of this, we can provide that information in various formats, not the least of which is through mobile devices. And this is, again, where our mobile technology, the Red Hat Mobile Application Platform, comes in. We can take that processed data and create information that can be then displayed out on anyone's mobile device, potentially even to the consumers of this service. Some of our customers are actually making this information available directly to their consumers so they can see exactly where their packages are and what the situation is regarding their deliveries. So I think that's a very interesting use case. It solves a very difficult problem, and it's an interesting illustration of how we can combine all these different technologies together. My second example really concerns what we term self-service applications. And again, this is a very important and popular development nowadays. The self-service application is essentially where an organization is taking what traditionally would be back office transactions and making them directly available to their customers, their consumers, and so on. And clearly, both mobile technology and business process management technology are very key to all of these types of applications. Mobile apps are typically the norm for end-user interaction, and BPM systems, business process management systems, are typically required now to handle all the complex interactions and workflows within the back office that are kicked off by these mobile devices. This is another very good example of how we can bring these technologies together. A particular example is in the insurance industry and insurance claims processing. Many insurers nowadays are looking to provide easy access to claim services through mobile devices. This provides a lot of benefit to the consumer that can use their device to quickly file a claim and provide all the information about a claim. Also provides a lot of benefits to the insurer themselves, and there are some bullet points on this slide that kind of illustrate that. Reduces the cycle time, improves data capture, and generally streamlines the workflow and improves the efficiency of the organization. And at Red Hat, again, we've produced an architecture for this type of application, self-service applications in general, and the insurance claims example in particular, that's illustrated here. And again, it brings together several of our middleware technologies into a single solution. So on the left of this diagram, we have a mobile device that's running the end-user application. That application can be developed using the Red Hat mobile app platform. So it could be anywhere from a simple forms-based application that's put together in a drag-and-drop interface to a more sophisticated native app that runs on the mobile device. And then we have the mobile app platform itself that, in this example, is functioning as a mobile backend as a service. It's handling all the interaction with the mobile devices out in the field, handling special capabilities like push notifications and so on. And the mobile app platform is going to interact then with BPM Suite, our business process management solution. BPM Suite's role is to really drive work through the organization to take the insurance claims and move it through all the steps in the process as required by the back end and interact with the office workers and the other systems that are needed as part of that claims process. So a typical claim will start out in the mobile device. We'll fill in the form. That form will get transmitted to the mobile app platform, which is then going to call the API, the REST API provided by the BPM Suite, that will then move that application, that claim through the process, interacting with the people and back-end systems as required. The other aspect that we've illustrated in this diagram is the use of Red Hat OpenShift, which is platform as a service. And what this does is it enables us to host this solution in a cloud, and it might be in a private cloud running in the organization's data center, or it might be in the public cloud. The OpenShift is going to handle all the details of the physical computing resources and enable us to scale this application up and down automatically according to the load on the device. So I mentioned a little bit here about BPM Suite and how it drives work through the organization. I just wanted to quickly illustrate what that really means on this next slide, which shows us an example business process model for how an insurance claims process might proceed. Just to give you a slightly more detailed idea of how BPM Suite is operating. So this diagram is a BPMN diagram, business process modeling notation. It's a standard format for describing business processes. And in this example, the claim would arrive at the top left of this diagram, this green dot that will kick off an instance of this process. And then BPM Suite's role is to drive that claim through this process, interacting with various systems along the way. Illustrated on here are various different types of step or task. So these purple steps, for example, are decision steps where the BPM is using business rules to make a determination about what to do with the claim. There are steps in here that illustrated with a little image of a person here on the top left. These are manual tasks. This is where we're sending that claim to an individual within the organization, in this case an adjuster, to make a decision about the claim. And there are other steps here that are illustrated in green, which are actually where we're sending push notifications back to the mobile device. So there are services behind these steps that illustrate how we're able to interact through the mobile application platform directly with the user to send information back to the mobile device. So that's a very quick outline of two use cases that I think illustrate the value here of bringing together mobile, BPM, and other technologies in the portfolio. So just a few quick key takeaways, I think. Fundamentally, what we're looking to do here is provide greater agility for the business and improve governance for the IT organization through a combination of these technologies. BPM allowing us to drive the business process, mobile handling the user interaction, and providing advanced, compelling user experiences for our organization's customers. So that brings us to the end of the formal part of our webinar today. I want to thank you very much for joining, and I want to point out that we do have a white paper available that we commissioned from the 451 group that provides a lot more detail and background on some of the use cases we talked about today. And there's a link here. I think you can also download this directly from the webinar tool that you have in front of you. Before we move on to take a few questions, I'd just also like to make a quick plug for Red Hat Summit. Red Hat's annual conference is coming up very soon now, May 2nd to 4th in Boston. We'd be delighted if you're able to join us at our summit this year. And for our webinar attendees, we have a special discount code here. This one is webinar 17. I believe this offers an equivalent to around a $600 discount off of the registration fee. So If you'd like to join us, certainly feel free to use this code to obtain a discounted full conference pass. All right, so I think we have just a few minutes left, so what I'd like to do is take a look at some of the questions that we've received. If you would like to ask a question, feel free to enter it in the little box, the Q&A box that should be on the bottom right of your screen. And what I'd like to do now is hand back to Steve for Q&A. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. So we're going to start going through the questions. The first one that came in is, how does a human intervention task like approvals tie into a BPM workflow? Is it a separate sub-process triggered once the approval is completed? And I'll pass that to my colleague Phil Simpson for an answer.
Sure, yeah. So human intervention in BPM, the fundamental mechanism is through what we call human task. So within that example that I showed, in fact, maybe I can just pull up that screen again, showing the workflow diagram. If I can just find it here. Here we go. So, within a workflow, any of these boxes can be designated as a human task, meaning that the work is passed to an individual, and the human task is annotated by a little human indicator in the top left. So the yellow box here on the left side of the screen is an example of that. So at that point, the BPM system will pass the work item off to an individual within the organization. It'll appear on a task list. There are various ways in which that work can be routed according to the skill of the individual and so on. There are lots of options there as far as how work actually gets routed to people. But fundamentally, it'll appear through a user interface that we provide or which our clients can develop themselves. So it could appear on a mobile device. It could appear on your screen in a browser in a task list for you to work on. The BPM system will monitor that task to make sure that it's completed in a reasonable amount of time and can do various things like escalate to other people if needed. And then when we're done, the workflow continues. So if you want to do a manual approval, that would typically be the way that it would work. Of course, it can, depending on the workflow, it can get more complex. You may indeed have a separate sub-process as part of the workflow that in which you interact with people, but that's all dependent on the design of the workflow. But fundamentally, that mechanism is what we would use, the human task.
Okay, great. Thank you, Phil. So we had one question come in asking about that URL, and it doesn't seem to be working. So we will promise to follow up on that and have that working later today. It was tested beforehand, so we might have had some blip with our website, but that'll be up and running as well. The next question is, no-code citizen developer is a myth. Oh my goodness, that's not a question, that's a statement. I haven't seen a business person developing anything close to what you showed. Nice try though, low-code is now, Comment, agree, disagree. Well, I think that, I'll give my perspective and then I'll let Phil give his. I think it's important to put low-code, no-code in its proper place. So you have, we see in the mobile space, a lot of our customers and the citizen developers begin the development process, right? Lots of ideas that flow through a set of criteria and kind of get winnowed down into the apps that you put into production. So your contention is I haven't seen anything like this go into production. Well, I actually have seen production-ready apps begin with a low-code, no-code type of development from the citizen developer. We have one use case in the United Kingdom where they actually built an application, a running very simple application for an immediate need. They built it in 8 hours and put it into production to 10,000 workers. So we have seen that, but I think it's the proper context for where they're at today, which is they're good for prototyping, they're good for simple use cases, and they're good for building, that starting application that gets handed to another developer, and that's on the mobile side. Bill, care to comment on the BPM side?
Yeah, fundamentally, I think I would agree with the statement. I agree that no code is a myth, right? We're not, I don't think we're claiming that you can develop a complete application without writing a single line of code. That may come in the future. There's a lot of interesting developments right now in some of the technologies around this area, but certainly today, we're talking about low code. We're talking about enabling the citizen developer, the business user, to greatly contribute to the development of applications directly specifying business needs into the development platform, and working with the developers to produce the application. So I think I kind of agree with the statement overall. Certainly, from today's perspective, I don't think anyone is claiming that you can build an application without any code whatsoever.
Okay, and then there's another question here on, how do we get started? What are some ways? So I just want to kind of put out a little bit of a plug for some of the things that you can do with Red Hat. You can certainly get involved with us in sort of scoping sessions. We have the opportunity to come in and do a deep dive on the use cases that are appropriate for these tools for you. We also have the Open Innovation Lab, which is a Red Hat supported process where we sit down side by side with the organization and run through. Maybe it's a day or it's a week-long kind of side-by-side coding effort. And Red Hat takes the responsibility to spin up all the infrastructure that you want to be able to do that and get started in focusing in on the use case. So if you haven't yet checked it out, I encourage you to check out the Open Innovation Lab. Is there time for one more question?
Maybe just one more quick
Okay.
question.
One more quick question. All right. So it's a good top level. So this is a question. This is a good top level process correlation tool, but each sub-element in the diagram can and will consist of a more complex web service and logic to perform the sub-task. Do you guys agree? Well, I think I'll pass that one to Phil for first comment. Phil?
Yeah, in general, the way that you would structure the process model would be that you would have a top-level diagram that takes you through the basic stages in a business process, and each of those stages would itself be a sub-process. This particular diagram that we're looking at here is actually an executable operational diagram, and there is, I believe we have a video of this actually working in action. And that's something else we can provide in the follow-up email. But so this is a fully executable diagram. It does actually work. There's nothing missing from this diagram. But yeah, you're right. In general, as you're thinking about building these models, the best practice is to create a high-level model and decompose it into sub-processes that do the actual work.
Yeah, and to build on what Phil is saying, I think this gets back to the other question around the use of low-code and no-code and what's the proper relation for that. So when you look at sort of the citizen developer and what they're able to do in these no-code, low-code environments, it's more assembly. It's not sort of customization, custom things. So you are right to say there are a lot of processes running underneath this, a lot of services that may support this. And the focus that we have at Red Hat is how do these services become consumable and reusable, right? So once defined, they can be used by these citizen developers to sort of assemble or bring together capabilities and not have to do deep coding. So that's another one. So I think with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for your time today. We really appreciate it. Do check out the assets that will come through on the thank you email, and we will get that link to the 451 paper fixed for you. And I do encourage you to come and join us at Red Hat Summit. We hope to see you in Boston in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.